Hello everybody, as a first-time player of Crusader Kings, I've found CK3 really challenging to understand. Now I'm not ready to review it just yet as I'm just learning quite a lot, but I wanted to share the story of my second playthrough with Prince KNUD Svensson of Denmark. He represents the first time I really felt the game click with me, where I became fully invested into the roleplay of his character. Anything I say will be a spoiler, so I'll just say that he's lived an incredible life, and I want to retell the events of it in order to share my first impressions of the game so far. This is going to give you a good understanding of what you can do in the game, and appreciate the kinds of stories that you can tell. It's not just wacky events that happen to him, but instead using every available mechanic at our disposal to form a plan and execute it. It's awesome. And if you can get into the roleplay, you're in for a wild ride. But before we start, this video is sponsored by Exter. Exter designs smart, stylish and trackable wallets. Their flagship model, the Parliament wallet, is slim and compact with an aluminium casing for your cards that is RFID protected, preventing identity theft and card skimming. The casing also provides quick access to your cards. At the press of a button, the cards fan out for you to take your pick and slot back into the wallet snugly. All of this is wrapped in premium quality leather that gives your wallet a unique look and feel as it ages. Exter's slim-fitting GPS tracker card can then be placed in the wallet and paired with your phone. The tracker is solar powered with a 2-hour charge lasting 2 months. The card lets you track its last location or set it to alert you should you get too far away from it. If you've misplaced your wallet, you can also call it through the app, or just ask Siri or Google to call it through voice activation. If you've got your wallet but not your phone, you can also call your phone to find it, and even use the tracker as a remote shutter so you can set up your camera to take a picture. Exter has a range of wallets and other products on their website, including phone and laptop cases. Using the link in the description of this video gets you a 20% discount code on checkout. That's 20% off your order for using the link in the description. Thank you again to Exter. I want to also mention that not getting this game early and being behind other creators with these kinds of things generally means a sponsor like that is extremely helpful to allow me to take the time to not rush out videos. And I try to choose a sponsor people will like, so hopefully you do. It's also worth mentioning that this was live streamed as well, so sometimes you'll see footage from the stream with me in the corner, but other times I'll try to use as much game footage as I can. I didn't record everything myself though. Alright, so we started our game in the 1066 timeline choosing KNUD Svensson, the Count of Halland. We called him Nud, just because it seemed to suit him a bit better, so I'll be referring to him as Nud from now on. Nud is 23 years old. He's ambitious, zealous, and impatient. He has a small military education, making him a bit of a tough soldier. His father, King Sven II of Denmark, is father to 15 children, so Nud is the second living child to his father after his brother Harald. So Nud is the Count of Halland, controlling 2 counties directly, Halland and Bleking. He borders the county of Skane. If Nud could control all 3 counties, he could create the Duchy of Skane and become the Duke of it. And this is something that's very important to him. His older brother is a Duke, so it's only fitting that he should be one as well. After all, he is ambitious. So what's standing in his way? Well, Skane is controlled by Count Torgils, and Nud will need to devise a way to take him out, either through direct conflict or intrigue. Nud chose to pursue a line of intrigue, as he's quite skilled in it himself, and began to adapt his lifestyle to skullduggery. But in order to protect himself against a direct conflict, should it happen, he sent a messenger to his brother Harald, the Duke of Jylland, requesting an alliance, to which Harald delightfully agreed. He then set out to find himself a wife, and sent a proposal to the beautiful Helena, who was a 20-year-old spy master for her own father, Count Ragnar. Now, Helena is vengeful, diligent, and temperate, not one to be trifled with. Ragnar accepted the proposal, and Nud celebrates his wedding by paying for it himself, so that all may enjoy the celebration carefree. But while the celebrations were taking place, Nud lured his archbishop away and tested some experimental substances on him against his will. Despite the fact they seemed to cause discomfort and pain, Nud chose to continue the experiments into the night, and while unlikely, the archbishop died during these experiments, but Nud obtained a formula for a risky poison that he could use to improve his various schemes. Several months went by, and Helena announced that she was pregnant with their first child. All the while, the king's alliances were dragging Denmark into several wars, including with the Kingdom of England, stretching Denmark very thin and making them vulnerable to their enemies. Nud knew that he needed to seize power if he was to protect Denmark and his yet unborn children. A few months later, Helena gave birth to a baby girl named Christina, However, she wasn't breathing properly and was considered sickly. KNUD began the search for a physician, and Helena took it upon herself to become the child's guardian, educating her in the ways of intrigue. KNUD held a celebratory feast in honor of Christina, which was a great success, and KNUD praised Helena for her efforts in its organization. During the feast, the topic of secession came up. Due to the current secession law, which is called Scandinavian elective, it enables everyone in the family to nominate a candidate, even themselves, and the wider family vote on who should be the next ruler. King Sven and several other family members favored young Prince Eric, who is KNUD's half-brother and is 14 years old. Fearing that Eric's naivety would destabilize the realm during these times of war, KNUD and Helena begin a plot to have Eric murdered in the hopes that KNUD will be the next favored son, and to ensure that the votes would lean his way afterwards, KNUD also sent his spy master to his older brother and ally, Prince Harald, to attempt to find some secrets that would allow Harald's vote to be bought. The plot against Eric was expected to take just under 2 years, and during this time, Denmark further escalated into conflict, now involved in 5 separate wars. One of them was a direct conflict right on their southern border against Valetia. Now, Count Torgils, KNUD's neighboring rival, became disfigured in the war, and was also then given wealth and favor by the king, which KNUD was personally offended by. Days later, the king was captured by Valetia and subsequently released in the peace deals, where KNUD's brother Prince Harald lost a piece of his territory to Valetia. This incompetence alarmed KNUD greatly. His brother had lost considerable Danish land, and his father himself was captured briefly. Now, KNUD pressed on with the plot against Eric and surveyed local farmlands himself so he could provide a map of escape routes, and a few months later, the murder of his half-brother Prince Eric took place by placing a deadly spider in his bed, killing him in the night. Spiders don't talk, so it was never revealed that KNUD and Helena were behind it. The very next day, in a coincidental turn of events, KNUD's older brother, Prince Harald, died from his wounds from the previous war with Valetia. This now placed KNUD as the prime candidate for King of Denmark. Christina, KNUD's daughter, also overcame her sickness against all odds, and seemed like she would make it as a healthy child after all. There was now only one thing in the way between KNUD and taking the title of King of Denmark: his father. KNUD and Helena together called on their spy master's efforts to begin the plot to murder King Sven, and with a little extra gold, the king was weakened from a small poison on his food. Around this time, Helena became pregnant with their second child, and several months later, and with overwhelming electoral support secured, KNUD gave the order to continue the assassination plot. As King Sven was moving through the streets of Roskilde, a riot erupted due to the ongoing unrest, and the king was trampled by his own subjects. Nobody questioned how the riot began. KNUD, after 6 years of planning, at 29 years of age, was thrust into the position as King of Denmark, and his entire court had to be rebuilt. Most notably, he took on his wife Helena's father, Count Ragnar, as his own spy master. Bonded together through their lust for intrigue, KNUD and Helena began to fall madly in love with one another, and their second daughter Emily was born. When King Sven died, KNUD inherited his father's conflicts and began to mobilize troops to help the Swedish king Eric II put down his vassal's rebellion. All the wars that remained were through alliances and not direct conflicts, so KNUD would lend aid where he could. A year prior, when KNUD's older brother Harald died, who was the Duke of Jylland, his 4-year-old daughter Esther inherited the title of Duchess. Quite unruly and incapable, though strangely powerful, KNUD and Helena, yet again, began their most sinister plot yet, this time to murder young Esther. The more they plotted to kill together, the closer they became. Their love was now insatiable, and Queen Helena wished KNUD to slay a wolf for her, and so he carried out the task with unflinching devotion. However, he also overheard Mayor Jens bad-mouthing Helena's looks, so KNUD challenged him to combat, though rather embarrassingly. He lost the fight and became visibly bloodied and wounded, prompting him to look for a capable new physician. Helena thought the attempt was admirable, though. The conflict to aid Norway against Moray ended in defeat, and soon after, the conflict to aid Sweden to put down its own rebellion was victorious. KNUD was slowly stabilizing Denmark after his father's tumultuous reign. It was now time for young Duchess Esther, KNUD's niece, to go on an outing in the forest. Search parties would find her the next day, beaten, bloodied, and torn apart by some sort of beast. At least it was made to look like a beast. The deed was done, however this particularly vicious attack on a mere child plagued Nud's conscience, and he had a mental break. He considered whipping himself as penance to God, or turning to the bottle to drown out the sinful thoughts, but in the end, he decided to bury it deep within himself. The assassination led to Esther's mother, Margaret, to take the title of Duchess of Gilland. Now Margaret was Nud's sister-in-law, widowed from his brother Harold. While initially she seemed favorable to Nud, her opinion quickly turned when she gained power. Due to a complicated set of circumstances, the Duchy of Gilland didn't actually hold any territories within the de jure of Gilland, which means Margaret wanted territories in the north of Denmark, as it's her right by title. Killing her wouldn't resolve anything, but just pass that problem to the next in line. So Nud began to fabricate a story about her, which he could use to blackmail her later. Now that the wars were over, Nud set about finding new allies. Queen Maria of Norway shared blood ties already and agreed to an alliance. The Duchy of Schleswig was created, allowing for a potential war against Wallachia to reclaim the territories they lost several years prior. Nud would undo all the mistakes of his father's reign. With new allies established, it was time to sort out the internals of Denmark. Even though Nud was king, he didn't possess that many holdings directly. Instead, his vassals retained many of them and shared a percentage of the taxes and levies back to him. In order to seize them for himself, Nud would need to revoke their titles, but this could lead to an open rebellion, as the vassals would fear for a tyrannical ruler seizing their power, especially from those who were already powerful and already unruly, such as Duchess Margaret. A perfect title to revoke was Count Thorgils of Skane, Nud's old rival, but doing so would certainly mean that Margaret would rise up in rebellion. So in a bold move, Nud gave Margaret the 4 vassals she coveted within Gilland itself, completing her duchy and leading her to gain a full control of 7 counties, making her extremely powerful. She was also given a position on the council as chancellor. Though this was extremely risky, it was a necessary step to try and please Margaret to prevent her from joining a rebellion. With Margaret now moderately happy, Nud attempted to revoke Count Thorgil's title and he rose up in rebellion, but nobody joined his cause, and the rebellion was able to be put down swiftly with the help of the Norwegians. This allowed Nud to revoke Count Thorgil's title, throwing him in prison and seizing the holdings for himself, and as fate would have it, this also marked the same day that Queen Helena gave birth to 2 daughters, Anna and Elsa. So to backtrack just a bit, while on an outing with Queen Helena, Nud overheard his younger brother Prince Benedict badmouthing her, and much like before, decided to challenge Benedict to a duel. Now despite still being wounded from his previous bout with Mayor Jens, and now with the risks even greater, Nud emerged victorious and gained a sense of redemption, greatly impressing the Queen. Not long after, while on a hunt, Helena wandered off and got cornered by a bear. But Nud at the last second appeared, shot a perfect arrow straight into the bear and killing it, thus saving the day. Helena was so impassioned by the event that she lay right next to the bear and made love to him right then and there. It was then that Nud and Helena knew they were soulmates. This was the event that predicated the birth of Helena's twins, Anna and Elsa. After securing the county of Skane, Nud still needed to gain even more power to rival that of Duchess Margaret of Gilland, and the county of Vorbase was a pretty good opportunity, seeing as he was next in line to inherit it after his brother Prince Niels. Niels was but 11 years old, however attempting to form an assassination plot was proving difficult, so Nud instead wished to sway Niels' guardian, Malthi, in hopes of getting closer to his younger brother. If the assassination could eventually be carried out, Nud would seize Vorbase through secession, without the threat of a rebellion. While this was ongoing, Nud declared a new war on Wallachia for Schleswig, the lost county from a few years ago. The timing was perfect, as Wallachia was already in a conflict with the Holy Roman Empire for Lubeck. Norway assisted in the war and sent their forces down to help the siege of Schleswig, and soon after, Denmark's forces defeated the Wallachians in the Battle of Hamburg, raising Nud's fame. While victory was assured, it would still take some time before the treaty could be signed. While the war persisted, Duchess Margaret began to suspect that someone was trying to fabricate a claim or find some potential secrets about her, but it was too late. Nud planned for a group of entertainers to enter her chambers at a time he learned would catch her completely naked, and it worked. This story could then be used to manipulate her in future to sway her about something trivial. This clearly upset Margaret, as in a matter of weeks, Asbjorn, her father, and Knud's uncle, pressed his claims on the Kingdom of Denmark, and Margaret began to back him with her military power. This meant that in just under 2 years, Margaret would rise up in rebellion to put her father on the throne and remove Knud. Asbjorn lived in Norway, which would make it very difficult and risky to carry out a successful plot against him. In the coming months, Denmark achieved victory over Valetia and the original territory of Slesvig was restored. With it arrived Count Vavsnitz, who always lorded over Slesvig and basically just stayed in place when the territory changed back and forth. Vavsnitz had an extremely bad view of Knud. They were both ambitious, causing conflict, and also Vavsnitz isn't Catholic, he's Slovianskan, viewing Catholicism as evil. And not only that, but Knud owned a part of the Slesvig Duchy, so there's a huge amount of strife between the two. Because of this animosity between the two, it didn't take long for Vavsnitz to publicly back Margaret's father Asbjorn for this oncoming rebellion. Because of the severity of the rebellion, where 2/3 of Denmark would revolt, and its expectance to occur in now just over a year, Knud and Helena decide to proceed with a plot on Asbjorn's life, regardless of the risks involved. With 5 months to go until the assassination attempt, Knud looks to find an agent willing to lend a hand to get close to Asbjorn. Duke Ogmund seems to be the best opportunity, though his price is quite high for a bribe, and so in desperation, Knud ransoms Count Torgils, who is still in prison from before, for a small amount of gold. However, it's still not enough to secure the bribe. Norway suddenly erupts into war with its neighbors and calls Knud in to defend the north. Knud agrees and raises troops to hopefully siege territory and obtain some gold for the bribe. There's not enough time, however, and the assassination starts to go ahead. A spider is the favored choice again, but the risks are far too great. Knud instead decides to hold off, but this conflicts with his impatient nature, causing him a lot of stress, triggering a second mental break. Again, Knud remains reserved and buries the stress deep down. Several months go by, and as a last resort to obtain gold, Knud looks within the court for the richest courtier. Knud identifies Rofred, a lowborn with no traceable family. He is imprisoned and negotiated that he be banished, seizing all his possessions and gold. This is seen by all vassals and court nobles as a large act of tyranny, to take someone seemingly innocent, strip them of their material possessions and banish them from the realm. But in doing so, Knud obtained the gold necessary to bribe Duke Ogmund, vastly increasing the chances of a successful assassination on Asbjorn the second time round. In keeping with the tradition of giving birth while attempting assassinations, Queen Helena gives birth to her first son, and he's named Bjorn after the bear that Knud struck with an arrow. With approximately 7 months to go until the potential rebellion, the assassination attempt begins. Asbjorn is led through some woods and a robbery is staged. He's killed in the conflict, and so are the assailants, making sure that there's no trace back to Knud. With Margaret's father now dead, the claims on Denmark are invalidated and the rebellion fails. The realm is saved. Fuck yeah! Finally did something. Count Vavsnitz continues to threaten rebellion on his own, though his claims are now much weaker and no other vassals back him up. Coming off the highs of a fresh kill, Knud and Helena immediately continue their scheme against Prince Niels of Vorbas. However, Niels actually begins to expect that he is the target of an assassination, but's unsure by whom. With Niels' guardian, Malthi, already somewhat swayed, it didn't take much to bribe him and ensure a really high chance of success. Knud threw Niels off the trail with signs of good omens, lulling him into a false sense of security, and the scheme went ahead as planned, with Niels murdered in the forest, similar to young Esther. Knud immediately inherits Vorbas as a result, but again, this child's death plagues him, and with all the recent conflict, his stress levels reach new heights. He has a complete mental breakdown, snapping at one of his messengers, ordering his head cut off and kept in a jar. After all of this murder and chaos over the last few years, Knud takes the time to go on a hunt and de-stress, which works out quite well, despite him not actually catching anything in the hunt. He then turned to Jesus to reconcile with what he's done to get to where he is today. Having turned over this new leaf, Knud attempted to improve his relations with his remaining brothers and to look after his health. It was around this time that things took a turn for the worse. An army belonging to Valetia began to raid Count Vavsnitz in Slesvig, and this actually caused him to be disfigured, so he now wears a mask. Norway's wars were still ongoing, and more were piling on, with 2 new fronts opening up. KNUD retreated his forces back to Denmark after lack of coordination from the Norwegians, and soon learned of an assassination plot against his own life. He ordered his father-in-law, Count Ragnar the Spymaster, to attempt to thwart these hostile schemes. But then, KNUD learned of the worst crime of all. KNUD came across an exposed secret of his beloved wife and soulmate, Helena, that Christina, his firstborn daughter, was indeed fathered by Count Vavjnitz instead. KNUD immediately accused Christina of still sleeping with him for all of these years, and it turned out to be true. KNUD debated what to do. Should he imprison his wife, kill her, revoke her titles? He was within his right to do whatever he wanted, but with her skillful intrigue, she could slip away into the night and he'd never see her again if she were to fear for her life. She was his soulmate. All the plots and intrigues they performed together, all with the help of her father. Torn by the conflict, questioning his children, his wife, his family, KNUD was certain of one thing, that Vavjnitz had to die. KNUD declared rightful imprisonment of Vavjnitz, but the coward refused and rebelled. KNUD raised 2,000 soldiers to march on Schleswig, battling the forces surrounding it and capturing Vavjnitz almost immediately. During this time, KNUD received word that Helena was pregnant, complicating things immensely. Upon his capture, Vavjnitz was tortured by KNUD to learn of any secrets that he may possess for further details regarding his adultery. Even under excruciating pain, no further secrets were exposed. Vavjnitz was later moved to a dungeon while the siege for Schleswig wrapped up and the war ended. Vavjnitz had his titles revoked and then was burned at the stake for his heretical Slovianskan religion. In the eyes of God, all of these acts were lawful and just. Listening to the crackling of the flames heavily reduced KNUD's stress. Several months later, the plot against KNUD's life was found out, and it was Torgil's, who upon discovery fled Denmark to Central Europe. A few months later, KNUD's second son Karl was born, and having completely stabilized the realm, KNUD's dynasty reached an illustrious level of fame amongst his subjects. For KNUD, however, he would trade it all to be able to look into Helena's eyes the way he used to. As the king of intrigue, he can truly trust no one, and so swears to give up that lifestyle. But there is one name left on his list. As he stares into the flames of his chamber fireplace, he already knows the answer to the question he asks himself each night. And that's it for my story of King KNUD. This playthrough was streamed over 7 hours, and his story isn't over. In fact, that was just 17 years of his life. KNUD is now 40 years old, and hopefully will rule for a couple more decades to come. I'll be very eager to hear what you think of KNUD's story and what you would do in his position. In terms of impressions, I've been really enjoying the game, though as I've said, I am still learning it. I haven't really touched religions or cultures aside from just a few within Europe, and I don't fully understand the scope of inheritance, succession, and some of the bigger decisions in the game. While others seem to really love the history and the setting, it's all about the character interactions for me. And I imagine when I start to see repeat events, I might get a little bit tired of things. But for now, the game feels really deep and immersive. It's like a giant medieval game of The Sims or something. As I said at the beginning, this was actually my second playthrough, and I felt like this was the good one to show because it was the first time I was really playing the game properly, thwarting rebellion, seizing power, rigging elections, and winning wars. That's why I thought the story of KNUD was one worth talking about. Any of these events or plots could have been discovered, the election could have went differently if his older brother never died, his wife Helena may have never cheated, we could have been killed in a duel, alliances could have fallen different. It's an incredible sandbox of events. And for those unaware as well, I got somewhat lucky having high intrigue characters, so it really helped a lot with pushing things through. But I was suffering for money a lot of the time and never focused on building that much. I'm hoping KNUD can live out the rest of his life peacefully and set up a strong economy for his future children. I do think the game still has like a really high learning curve. It's much easier than CK2, but still quite difficult to understand for me anyway, and lots of friends that have said the same thing to me. While concepts are well explained, nothing practical is ever really shown. You might know what prestige is, but you don't know examples of where you're going to need it or use it or how to get it. I know the answer to that now from playing the game, but the game doesn't actually tell you in the beginning. So multiply that by everything you interact with in the game, you've got a network of complexity that you don't know how it relates to each other. Combine that with the fact that you've got no objectives, you're just directionless, you're sort of left sitting around in front of a screen of numbers wondering what to do a lot of the time. And while everything has been playing pretty well so far, I have noticed that the AI in Wars seems to be really bad. It especially hurts that you can't attach armies or give them a goal or direction like you could in the previous games. Now, I didn't play CK2, but I feel like that feature is missing. You know, it definitely is noticeably absent. I'm playing the game on Game Pass. For those who don't know, you can pick the game up there for $1 if it's your first time using Game Pass, or it's just a regular $5 monthly sub. And of course, it's not just for CK3, it's for lots of different games, including like all the Paradox games, Flight Simulator, loads of new games and things like that. CK3 is actually cross-play there for multiplayer with Steam, and all the Steam mods are available through Paradox's launcher to download, so it's really been a great experience there. The game is also on CD keys for a big discount if people want to grab a Steam key and also help support my channel. I've had a few that do that already and it really helps me out. The link is in the description. It's a big discount. And that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more CK3 from me, just let me know. Oh, and I'm also getting pretty close to 100,000 subs. It'd be a great milestone to reach by the end of the year if we could manage that. So make sure to click that sub button so you can catch more of my stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.